Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and welcome to my updated Relic farming guide for patch 1.2. In this video, we're going to be covering how good the new sets are, which combination of sets is seeing the most use for each of the different roles, and finally, which of the Caverns of Corrosion and Simulated Universe stages are the most stamina efficient to farm for maximum power, but also free-to-play stamina efficiency. In patch 1.2, we received 4 new Relic sets, the first of which, Messenger Traversing Hackerspace, is an excellent addition. The 2-piece provides 6% extra speed, and the 4-piece is a special activated effect the wearer gains when they use their ultimate on an ally. After triggering it, the entire team gets 12% increased speed for 1 turn. The 2-piece of Hackerspace is one of the best in the game. Speed is incredibly difficult to acquire on main stats and substats. Having good access to it here means you can mix and match this with another 2-piece set and get the amount of speed you need for your characters to work. The 4-piece, on the other hand, is exceptionally powerful in the right scenarios. In long drawn-out fights, the speed is incredibly easy to average out, and you're going to end up getting a few extra moves in the course of a fight. But in endgame, specifically Memory of Chaos, with wave resets and specific speed breakpoints, you're going to need to do a little bit of math or be a little bit more careful with how much value you actually get from the 4-piece. But because there's not too many other options in the game right now, it's a pretty safe bet to take advantage of the 4-piece set, as there's not really much else to choose from. Longevous Disciple, the other 4-piece set added, grants 12% increased max HP for its 2 set, and an exceptionally powerful 4 set bonus that grants you 8% crit rate whenever you consume your life or are hit, and it stacks up to 2 times, so you get 12% HP and 16% crit rate, assuming your character can make use of it. In terms of raw stat values, Longevous Disciple is actually the strongest set in the game, assuming you have 100% uptime on that crit rate buff. But even just the 2-piece set is incredibly powerful. The 12% max HP is incredibly strong for characters like Blade or healers who use max HP. You can mix and match this set with other 2-pieces like Passerby of Wandering Cloud and achieve some really big healing boosts, or you can mix it with the aforementioned Hackerspace and gain HP boost as well as speed boosts. 4-piece Longevous is insane, but right now, only Clara, Arlen, and Blade can make consistent use of it, but if there's others, let me know down below. It's also not so powerful that you can ignore the 2-piece set and have it still be better than other options, meaning for Clara and Arlen, because they can't use the HP percentage on 2-piece, they're likely better off using the lightning set or physical set respectively. Next up is our first new Planar set, Broken Keel, which grants 10% effect res for the wearer, but also if you have 30% effect res or higher, grants the entire team 10% critical strike damage. This set is essentially a twist on the Fleet of the Ageless set. Max HP is generally a more universal defensive stat, but effect resistance can be exceptionally strong as well, especially because we've seen some nasty debuffs get added to the game in 1.2, and I imagine there's only more to come. So having some effect resistance on your supports and healers, who this set will be going on, is definitely not a bad idea. The 30% effect resistance requirement to activate the bonus also isn't a steep one, so you should be able to get this easily with the substats on your gear. Now, as for the bonus it grants, the crit damage, that is a big bonus. However, in terms of substat value, it's actually weaker than the attack percentage bonus. But crit damage is rarer, and it's also much less available from other team members, with the only crit damage buffs coming in the form of Yukong's ultimate and Bronya's ultimate. And overall, crit damage is definitely a more desirable stat in the Ultra endgame, because attack is very easy to get on gear. The main thing to consider is that Fleet of the Ageless is going to be great for DOT characters that don't scale with crit, and also attack scaling supports, whereas Broken Keel is going to be excellent for characters that don't scale off of attack percentage, like Blade. Finally, we have Rutilant Arena, which grants 8% critical strike rating, and while your crit rate is higher than 70%, You gain 20% increased damage to your basic attacks and skill damage. This set is incredibly powerful and is absolutely going to be best in slot for a number of characters existing and newly added to the game. One of the prime examples being Sele. The 8% crit rate, which is a rarer stat to acquire, combined with the very generic 20% damage to basic attacks or skill damage, is a big deal. Now, assuming you can satisfy that 70% crit rate or higher, this set is very much likely going to be best in slot for any character who deals 55% of their damage or more from basic attacks or skill damage. And the only time I've encountered this isn't the case is if a character has exceptionally high increased damage already part of their kit. But even as mentioned earlier, a character like Sele who has 80% increased damage from Resurgence, I still found this to be best in slot for her. Next up, I want to give you guys a rough idea of what the top sets are for each of the different character archetypes right now, which will help us a little bit more when we talk about farming efficiency. For damage dealers, most characters best in slot is a 4-piece elemental set, for example Sele is the Quantum set, or a 4-piece signature set. For Blade, that would be Longevous Disciple, but there are also a number of other very competitive options which can sometimes even be stronger than 4-piece sets. Let me give you guys some of the strongest ones. 2-piece Elemental or Signature with 2-piece Hacker gives you good speed and good damage. You can also use 2-piece Elemental and 2-piece Wildweed to double down on 2-set damage. Finally, you can go for 2-piece Hacker and 2-piece Wildweed if you're interested in another alternative. You can also use 4-piece Wildweed as your universal stamina efficient option. For healers, assuming they scale off of HP instead of attack, looking at you Luocha, the following are your best options right now. A 4-piece Hackerspace is likely going to be one of your best bets for that speed bonus, but a 2-piece Hacker and 2-piece Passerby gives you good speed and massive healing. Similarly, a 2-piece Hacker and a 2-piece Longevous gives you healing, speed, but also survivability. Finally, for the biggest healing stats, you can also use 2-piece Passerby and 2-piece Longevous Disciple, doubling down on that healing percentage. And of course, we have our generic Wildweed for a bit of speed in one place. Last up would be supports, but because there's so many of them and they all scale off of different things, it wouldn't be right to give you guys a list of what's being used right now because it's just too varied. So instead, we're going to move straight into what the most stamina efficient farms are right now for free to play and of course spenders. Alright, so first up is Caverns of Corrosion, and in order to give you guys a bit more of an idea of what you might want to farm, I've made a bit of a chart here which might give you guys some advice. So each of these are split into 3 different categories. So the first category is character specific but really strong, which has a yellow dash on the caverns it represents. These caverns have insanely powerful set bonuses in them. The downside is though that they're generally not transferable between the roles. A good example of this is the Quantum set, which is exceptionally powerful for quantum damaging characters and even some others, but isn't going to be the best on your healers or supports. The next category is generic but not always best in slot with the blue paw print. This contains sets which can pretty much universally be used on most of your characters, but aren't necessarily always going to be best in slot or the most bang for your buck if you're a super min-maxer. Sets like Musketeer of Wildweed, as well as Hackerspace, as we saw earlier, can be used interchangeably on a lot of different character roles. And finally, we have luxury sets, which have a lot of interesting sets in them, but aren't necessarily getting the highest use rates right now, so aren't going to be the most popular picks, at least right now in patch 1.2 with the current roster and understanding we have of the game. Before we get started though, as a bit of a disclaimer, everyone will be farming 3 Echoes of War a week, and from those echoes you're going to get free gear. That free gear is going to be part of the Musketeer of Wildweed and the Thief of Shooting Meteor sets, meaning you're going to get a lot of this over time. So it can lower the priority of some of the different domains we're about to talk about, so keep that in mind. Alright, let me give you guys a little bit more info though, and first up is the generic but not always best in slot. So starting out, we've got Path of Drifting here. The set Musketeer of Wildweed is usable on every character to some extent, even though it might not be best in slot on many of them. It can be used on damage dealers because it gives 6% speed and 12% attack, so it's at least usable on them and pretty decent. It can be used on healers because of the 6% speed, and it can also be used on supports because of the 6% speed, and some characters even get value out of the 12% attack as a support or a healer as well. Passerby of Wandering Cloud is also not bad, mainly the 2 set is what you're looking at here, and mixing and matching that with other sets can actually yield best in slot scenario. Path of Elixir Seekers similarly has a lot of generic sets. The Hackerspace set, specifically the 2-piece, is incredible, granting 6% speed. You can mix and match that with any other set and get a massive effect. Even just the 6% speed alone is universally good enough for a set bonus to consider farming this. The 4-piece is also an outstanding bonus and, in the eyes of some, a best in slot choice for a lot of healers and harmony characters right now. Longevous Disciples 2-piece is phenomenal on healers as a 2-piece mix and match, and is also a pretty good option to mix with Hackerspace for other supporting characters to beef them up while also gaining speed. Of course, we also know the 4-piece is best in slot for Blade and I'm sure upcoming characters as well. For players looking for a one-stop shop which can be used universally across their account without worrying too much about min-maxing, either of these caverns is a great stamina efficient option. Next up are caverns, which are character specific but incredibly strong, which contain some of the most powerful best in slot sets in the game. However, the sets in these caverns are far more role specific, meaning they won't be as interchangeable or universally usable across your account. This is very much true for some of the more powerful sets like the Quantum set, which would only really be used on damage dealers, specifically quantum damage dealers, meaning if you're looking to gear characters up fast, you might want to go with the blue domains instead of the yellow ones. But for players looking for best in slot and maxing out some of the strongest characters, this is where you'll find it. Path of Providence is up first, and it contains the Wuthering Snow set, which right now in patch 1.2 isn't too desirable, but it also contains the Quantum set, which is seen as one of the strongest damaging sets in the game, specifically on quantum characters. It of course gives quantum damage, but most importantly gives defense ignore. And that stat there is a multiplier outside of pretty much every other multiplier in the game, meaning it's a big damage increase. So much so that some people even use the Quantum set on non-quantum damage dealers. It is phenomenal, and it's likely going to stay strong for a very long time. Next up is the Path of Holy Hymn, which you should be interested in farming if you have a strong shielder on your account which you are invested into, namely right now in 1.2 Japad or March 7th. Fireman character can also use this set if you're interested in their shields. If you have Japad as one of your solo sustainers or main sustainers though, this is absolutely a set you're going to want to pick up as it is transformative for him and his playstyle. It also contains the Lightning set, which is also outstanding, containing some of the highest stat weights in the game, which is going to really boost up your damage. It is of course best in slot for all lightning damage characters right now in 1.2. Path of Jabbing Punch is up next, and it contains the physical set and the break set. The physical set is best in slot for physical characters, of course, and the break set is situationally used here and there on characters like Serval as well as Silver Wolf, but right now it doesn't have the most utility. Overall, I definitely recommend farming Path of Providence if you have a quantum character you want to invest into, namely Sele or QQ. I recommend farming Path of Holy Hymn if you have Japad or a strong lightning character you want to invest into. I recommend Path of Jabbing Punch if you have a strong physical character or you want to experiment with break effect. Finally, we have some luxury sets. Luxury sets are ones which are exceptionally powerful but in a very niche scenario, and overall for most players aren't really the first priority that you should consider farming, even for their respective elements. They can be strong, but at least in 1.2 right now, they're just a little bit more on the niche side. For players looking to gear up fast, the blue caverns are definitely a good start. For players looking for best in slot, they can look towards the blue or the yellow caverns. And for players looking to go crazy with theory crafting or who already have a ton of relics, the orange luxury sets are also there for you. Next up is the best simulated universe worlds to farm for efficiency. So we'll be using our normal categories here, and for generic but not always best in slot, we have Simulated Universe World 3 and World 7, both containing exceptional damage focused sets and supporting sets that can be used on pretty much any character with a few caveats here and there. So first up, World 3 has the Space Sealing Station, which grants 24% increased attack, which is a massive amount assuming you have 120 speed. This set can pretty much be used on any damaging character and any attack scaling character in the game, and it's going to be a pretty good set. But in the ultra endgame, some characters prefer some other sets, but Space Stealing Station is always going to be decent on pretty much anyone who uses attack and can get the 120 speed needed. Also in here though is the Fleet of the Ageless set, which grants HP percentage, which is great for healers and a defensive boost, but also the 8% increased attack aura for your entire team, assuming you have 120 speed. So you have an excellent damaging option and an excellent supporting option. World 7 is very similar to World 3 in that it contains a pure damaging set and a pure supporting set, both of which are the ones we spoke about earlier, Broken Keel and Rutilant Arena. Now they are a lot more specific than the World 3 sets. Broken Keel is exclusive to crit damage scaling, meaning it's not quite as universal as the HP percentage and the attack percentage from the Fleet of the Ageless. And Rutilant Arena is exclusive to skill damage and basic attack damage, meaning a character like Jingyuan wouldn't get as much benefit from a Rutilant Arena farm. However, both of these are still great. You have a damaging set and you have a supporting set, and this can be a good utility option to farm up if you have characters that work with these sets. Both these worlds offer you a great attack set and support set. I see most people farming World 3, but World 7 definitely has a lot to offer depending on the characters in your account and what you're aiming to achieve. Both of them have good universal options. Next up is our character specific but strong worlds. World 6 contains the Belobog of Architects and Inaltsal Soto set. Belobog of Architects is only really used on March 7th and Japad, and only on specific builds on those characters, so it's not seeing a ton of use. However, Inaltsal Soto is definitely best in slot by a decent amount on quite a few characters in the game, namely Jingyuan and Clara, but also a few others. So if you have one of those characters, it's not a bad idea to farm if you've already got gear on everybody else. So if you already have support sets and a few other sets that you've got covered, Inaltsal Soto can be the one for you. World 4 also contains some very interesting sets. The mainly one is Sprightly Vonwhack, offering 5% energy recharge, which can be the difference in an entire rotation for a character. So if you have a character you're seeking energy recharge on and you really want to make it work, this can be one of the most impactful set bonuses in the entire game. So you can definitely justify farming it, but you may want to use something else to acquire it, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. And finally, we have Talia Kingdom of Banditry, which can be a pretty good option if you're interested in break builds. Break isn't the most meta thing right now in patch 1.2, but if you're interested in the style, it can also be a good relic for that as well. The yellow sets are a lot more niche than the Caverns of Corrosion, but they can still be worth farming if your account wants them. Finally, World 5, our only luxury world, contains Celestial Differentiator and the Pan-Galactic Enterprise. Celestial Differentiator isn't seen to be the best planosphere, to put it nicely, but the Pan-Galactic Enterprise is certainly something very strong, but it's only on characters that need effect hit rating, and they need to stack quite a lot of it. The breakpoint for effect hit rating for this set to be considered strong and top tier is roughly about 50% or higher. If your character needs 50% effect hit rating, Pan-Galactic is likely going to be one of their best in-slot options. However, it is definitely a luxury item. There are a lot more options on the table for effect hit rating characters that you can use over Pan-Galactic, even though it might be their best in slot. That's why it's not something you want to farm until you have all your other bases covered and you're going for those ultimate best in slot pieces. Overall, I recommend farming World 3, and if you're interested, World 7, then you can branch out to World 6 and 4 if you need the pieces described in them, and World 5 if you really want to go crazy on effect hit rating. As a bit of a bonus round here, I figured I'd give you guys some advice on what to use your self-modeling resin on. For me at least, I've used my modeling resin exclusively on energy recharge ropes. But overall, I'd recommend you guys pick a set which you don't plan to farm frequently, and a main stat which is incredibly rare. Some two examples of this are of course energy recharge link ropes and speed boots. So you can skip a ton of farming time trying to get those incredibly rare items and guarantee them to ensure you don't waste your stamina. Additionally, for theory crafters, down below you can also find a spreadsheet which converts all of the set bonuses which have stats on them into stat weights equivalent to substats. So you can kind of get a feel for how powerful each of the different sets are at each different character's power level. A good example of this is you can see the 10% healing boost here on the Passerby of Wandering Cloud 2 piece is worth 3.21 substats. And you can see that all of the different sets have been calculated here for you min-max enthusiasts. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video, good luck with rolling your relics, and until next time, cheers.